Okay guys, we're back for Rattlesnake Bay Part 3. This was about 2 weeks after the last video that I just posted. So the last video was on Christmas Day. I wanted to go back out and see if those reds were still hanging out there in Rattlesnake Bay. And so it was still warm. Remember, the wind was blowing out of the south really hard, 35 to 40 miles an hour. Real warm. So this is 2 weeks later. This is in January. I want to say during a weekday sometime in January, but 2 weeks later from December 25th. And a cold front had already blown in over the lower Laguna Madre, so it was cold. It was a cold morning. As you can see, we got our jackets on. I think it was about 47 degrees when we put in down there. And we put in just right after the park opened. So this is about 6:30 in the morning. Sun is just barely peeking up over the horizon. And we're going to head right back out to Rattlesnake Bay and try it out. And just, to see if those reds were still hanging in that area. So look at that. Beautiful morning. It's a cold morning now, but the difference now is there's a couple of elements. One, it's cold. And then two, the wind has shifted. It is no longer blowing out of the south. It is blowing out of the north. North to northeast is what it's blowing now. So this time when we go into Rattlesnake Bay, we're going to go in right there, just right around the corner on the north end by the mouth of the river, of the Arroyo. Because we're drifting, so we need the wind behind us at our back since we're drift fishing. And now that the wind's blowing out of the north, we're going to come at it from the opposite side and drift back the opposite way. And we're going to drift through. And instead of drifting in front of Rattlesnake Island and Hobnail Island in Rattlesnake Bay, the direction that the wind was blowing, which was, I want to say, out of the northeast, and it wasn't blowing that much. It was probably about 10 to 15, probably about, well, 10 to 12. It wasn't really a windy day. It was nice. It was nice and calm out there. It gives us a little bit different direction. So instead of drifting in front of those two islands, on this drift, we're going to drift behind them. It's the way the wind's going to give us the direction. We're going to end up drifting on the backside of those islands. So you're going to see we're going to get into some pretty shallow water there, to where you're talking it's only like 10 inches deep. And we're going to see. I mean, we're going to see. So I'm anticipating that, hey, maybe they're still hanging there. I mean, it's 2 weeks later. We'll see. If, you just don't know until you go and try it to see if they're still hanging out in that area. So that's what I was telling Robert there, that hey, we'll go try Rattlesnake Bay first, and then we'll pop over, and we'll end it at Bird Island, and then we'll come back in. But look at that beautiful sunrise. Look at that beautiful sun coming up. Beautiful morning. Just another beautiful morning on the lower Laguna Madre. And heading out. Chilly day. Cassie's got her jacket on too. She's down there somewhere. And she's ready to go too. So we're going to just head straight down here. And instead of the last video where you saw that I rode all the way to the southern end of Rattlesnake Bay, right where it meets close to Three Islands, and then I went in and I drifted back to the north end because the wind was coming out of the south. This morning we'll just be doing the opposite. We're gonna enter right here, right off of the mouth of the Arroyo, into the bay, and we're gonna drift from the north to the south because the wind's coming out of the northeast. But you see how calm it is. Few birds, not as many birds as the last time. Not a lot of bait fish moving because, like I say, it's cooler temperatures. So when it's colder, you really have to work it. You're gonna have to work it a lot harder than you would normally when the water temperature is warmer. You don't want the water temperature to be too warm, and you don't want it to be too cold. You like that middle ground in the medium, because if the water temperature is too hot, the fish aren't going to be in the flats. They're going to be in the deeper water, laying low, staying cool. You know, when you get those 100-degree days in the summertime, it really gets tough to fish the flats out there. You really got to be on your game because they're generally not biting in the daytime when it's 100 degrees out. They'll be laying low in the cooler, deeper water areas and hanging around those areas. But when it's cold, they'll be in they do like the deeper waters too, because the temperature doesn't drop as much. But you will find a few that do still hang in the flats, but they're real lethargic and they don't really move a lot because the water temperature is cold, and it just kind of, they just kind of shut down and they just kind of do a holding pattern, and they don't really feed unless they're absolutely hungry. And when they do feed, they're not really super aggressive when they're feeding because, like I said, they're lethargic because of the cold water. But same thing, they would also move into deeper water to stay warm. You know, because it'll get pretty shallow. Because like those few freezes that we've had in years past, you've seen plenty of dead fish all over the bay in the shallow water. It's killed a lot of fish because temperature drops so fast. Because when you're talking, you only have inches of water. There's not a lot of thermal underlayment there for the fish, and the fish don't survive that cold. But look at that. Look at that beautiful sunrise. This is a beautiful January cold day. I want to say it was on a Thursday that we went on this. I want to believe, if I recall right. And it was a Thursday morning when we went out, so there was hardly anybody out there on the bay. There were a few boats, but hardly anybody really. We didn't start seeing them until, you know, a little bit later on in the morning, moving around. But you can see right there, somebody's already gone before. As you see the trail that they left behind with their boat that we're following into. So someone has already been out there in front of us and has already gone through the mouth of the arroyo and went whatever direction they were going into the bay. So we're just trying to stay warm until we get over there, and then once we start moving around, we'll warm up pretty fast. And once the sun comes out, it does warm up. I think it gets into the 60s, I believe, if I recall that day. It never really got into the 70s. It was in the upper 40s, and then when the sun started rising, it warmed up into the 50s and then into the 60s. I think was the highest that it ever warmed up that day that we were out there. Channel markers, so we're getting close to the mouth because you're starting to see channel markers now, so we're getting close. As you can see, dead off the bow of the boat straight ahead is Bird Island, and to the left there is going to be the Y, where Y is to the south, and to the north, and then to the right there is going to be the Y to the south. And it's just Rattlesnake Bay is just right on the other side of that land mass right there on the south side, on the starboard side of the boat. So we're lining up, go through the south lane of the Y, and then we're just going to go right into Rattlesnake Bay from there. Now you see Bird Island's dead ahead, and then we're going to slowly start to turn to make that curve, because like I say, the arroyo doesn't shoot straight out, it curves. There either curves to the north or curves to the south, depending upon which direction you're heading. Why they designed that channel that way, I couldn't tell you, but that's how it is. So that the water splits in the middle. I guess maybe for erosion protection, I'm assuming that's why the Army Corps of Engineers designed it that way. But look at that sun. Beautiful. We're going to stop here and we're going to enjoy it here in a minute too, once we get lined up over there. We're going to just take a few minutes and take it in. That's one beautiful sunrise right there. There's the marker. I don't even think that marker's there anymore. I think a barge ran that over. You see that wooden pole right there, that piling in the ground? I think it got ran over a long time ago. I don't think it's out there anymore. I think they put like a little floating buoy there now that marks that spot. So I'm going to stop right here somewhere, and we're just going to make it. We're just going to make a discussion. I'm going to tell them, hey, we're going to try Rattlesnake Bay first, and then we're just going to shoot across to Bird Island. And those are going to be the two spots we're going to hit this morning before we come back. But look at that sunrise. It's beautiful. So I'm pointing over at Bird Island. It's right there, letting them know that's going to be the second stop. But first, we're going to go back because I'm kind of wondering. I just need to know if they were still over there, because it's already been what, almost a month since the first video. Basically, right? Been a month. And when I caught those big reds at first on December 17th, and now we are on, I want to say January 13th is what day that was, on a Thursday. So it's pretty close to being a month right there. And I just want to go back and see if they're still hanging in that area, because the reds move, and especially these were big reds. They're not your regular ones. They usually move in big schools when you have those big upper slot and over slot reds like that. And so I just wanted to fulfill my curiosity to see if they were still over there. And I'm letting them know about the spoil drops, how I came out the last time, that I went all the way down to the southern end because the wind was blowing out of the south, and I came in and I cut across, and then I drifted back. But today it's going to be different, and I'm not sure how it's going to work out, because we got to start at the north end because the wind's out of the north. And the direction of our drift isn't going to be the same. It's going to take us, instead of in front of Rattlesnake Island and Cobnell Island, it's going to take us behind it in the mud flats. So where the water is really shallow, and you really got to watch, because there's always a lot of sandbars and mud bars and embankments that are just right below the water. Most of the time you can see them because you can see the water breaking, and hey, I need to go around that. But then it's hard because there's multiple ones on the backside. So that's why I'm saying, you'll see in the video, it gets pretty shallow. You got to have a really good shallow running boat, because you can end up in a little bit of trouble back there, getting stuck. And that's what I'm just letting you know, that we're going to hit Rattlesnake Bay first, and then we're going to end it in at Bird Island, and we're going to go back in. So now we're going to make the turn around, and we're going to shoot right in here, right on the north end of Rattlesnake Bay. That's Bird Island off to the port side, the starboard side. The Arroyo's dead ahead. We'll make the turn. Now we're lined up in Rattlesnake Bay. This is the northernmost entrance to Rattlesnake Bay right here. As soon as you come out of the mouth of the Arroyo, it's right there. If you go south, it's right there on the right. This is the deepest part of the bay, right here. It's got a little old gut channel that runs up in there a little way, so you're talking maybe anywhere from 5 feet. I think even maybe you might even have 8 feet in the channel. But then once you start getting off the channel like I did there, see, now I'm going to shoot towards Horsehead Island, or Horse Island. And we're going to drift along that. And I guess it didn't produce anything, because I didn't see anything in this video about that, because we skipped from this to where we're back behind Rattlesnake Island and Hobnail Island. But in wintertime, I usually catch trout right here along this edge. When the wind's blowing out of the north, I'll come right up to this duck blind that's right here on Horse Island, and I'll drift that whole edge back south. And it's usually pretty good for trout, for speckled trout. But I guess maybe this morning we didn't catch anything, because right here when we stop, it cuts into being behind Rattlesnake and Hobnail Island. So that's something when I see Robert, I guess we didn't catch anything, because it's not in this video. It's going to cut off. But that's usually a good spot. All along this edge here, this is Horsehead. I know it is Horsehead Island, but people call it Horse Island. It's usually a good spot for trout all along that edge because there's grass right up there. Of course, there's mud, but there's a lot of grass too. So see? So this right here is, you see that what's in front of us? That's Hobnail Island in front of us. In the previous video, I was on the opposite side of that. So we're on the back side of that now. And Robert just hooked a big redfish. So he's working on trying to get him in. And I'm getting the net ready, put my pole up. I didn't want to be in the water at the same time since he's working it. But he's got a really nice red here that he's trying to get into the boat. There's Cassie. See, Cassie on her game, helping Robert out. Getting him hooked up with the big red. Like always. Tell you, man, Cassie just knows it. She knows where those big reds are. That's a beautiful red that he catches here. Nice big old redfish. And it's the upper slot, but it's a little bit over the slot. It's going to be a 28.5 inch red that he catches. So it's just right over the upper slot, and it falls in the lower end of overslot reds, but still beautiful redfish. So we're talking, this is a month later. Here we are catching another big one. So he was still hanging there. But I think most of the other ones had already moved on somewhere else, because this is the biggest one that's caught that day. Right here. That's beautiful redfish. I'm trying to get the hook out of him so you can get him up. Look at that. Big old red. Still trying to get the hook out of him. Well, we're going to measure him out. And he measures out to 28.5, I think. Or 28.25, something like that. It's a little bit over the slot. I think it's 28.5. And it was cold. It was still cold at that time when he got him. It was still pretty breezy. But as you see, the wind's out on the north, and we're drifting the opposite direction. We're drifting from north to south now, instead of from south to north. Because most of the time down on the lower Laguna Madre, you're going to be drifting from south to north, because the wind just blows 10 months, 11 months out of the year out of the south here. Look at that red. Beautiful red. And he caught it on that Back Bay Thunder, popping cork, live shrimp. 8.5 foot inshore extreme rod from Offshore Angler, number 4 treble hook. That beautiful red. You really get the size when he turns it sideways there. Robert's not, he's not used to the camera. Now you can see how big it is. Yeah, that's a monster there. Like I say, for in the flats, that's a big redfish. I mean, yeah, you'll catch a bull red every now and then if you're closer to the channel or whatever, because they swim up and down in the channel. But back in the flats, that is, you know, tops. Getting a redfish that size. And we're in the mud flats, so we drifted behind Rattlesnake Island and Hobnail Island. So we're in the mud flat part of Rattlesnake Bay, where it's just nothing but mud back there, and there's little grass splotches everywhere and all this. But yeah, so they were still hanging. He still caught one, so they're still around. You just got to work it harder because it's cold weather, and they're not going to be moving or feeding as much. Yeah, Robert's proud of that one. That's a beautiful fish. He should be. He won the day that day. Got the biggest red. I mean, that's what it's all about. Look at the expression on his face, man. Enjoyment. Landing that beautiful red. Gotta take plenty of pictures for him. It's gonna be a memorable moment. I guarantee you, never forget that. So now we're gonna let him go because he's over the slot, and Robert didn't want to use his tags, so he's gonna let him go. That beautiful red.
Oh, he'll make it, but move it back and forth some more. Let the water get through still. So now what you're gonna do? You're gonna grab his tail, and then you're gonna release the pliers, and then you're gonna move him around, and then when he wiggles to get off, just go. So grab his tail, grab him at the end by the tail, put him back in the water, take the pliers off.
Grab him by the tail. Since he's so big, take the pliers off and push him through the water by the tail, and then let him go.
He'll let you know when he's ready to go, and you just let him go.
That's it. Gone. Look at that. See? So now we're still back there behind in the mud flat. So you see how it's mud with little splotches of grass here and there, and the wind's blowing out of the north. You know, probably about 10 miles an hour. Not maybe 12 at the most, but not that much. It's perfect drifting wind that you'd like right there. That's about the perfect drifting wind, where you don't move along that fast. Here you have to work it, because you see all those mud, empty, open areas. So you're working those grass lines that you can see, those dark shadows on the water. You're working along them, because if there's going to be any redfish in there, and if they're not moving, they're going to be hanging along those, just right inside those grass lines. And so you're working those edges, popping the cork with that live shrimp out there. And then I catch one here somewhere, if I haven't already hooked it already. But you can't see me because I'm on the back of the boat. He's fishing off the front of the boat, so I'm fishing off the sponson on the back. But you see the water? The water's only like 10 inches there, 10 inches. That's all it is, man. It's real shallow. Real shallow water there. A lot of mud and just splotches of grass. And all it is, it's just a flat plane. I did a video here when I started doing these, when I was narrating the one where I'm back there. It's basically, that's in the same spot where I was at. Just this was in the winter time, and it was a cold day, whereas that previous video was in the springtime and it was a warm day. But it's just a flat plane of mud with grass splotches here and there back there in that mud flat. So we're fishing about, it looks like about 7-8 inches drop leader on it. It may even be less, because that can be an optical illusion in the camera, because it's in wide angle lens. So it might even just be 6 inches. It looks longer than what it really is. And I want to say I catch a 23 or 24 inch red right here. I want to say, or 21, I don't remember. It's 20 something. I know I catch 2 redfish. One of them's 23, and then the other one I think was 21, I believe. What was what the other one was? Besides the smaller ones that aren't worth, the little rat reds that we let go. But we're right back in the same area, except we're just on the back side of the island, instead of being on the front side. Because the way the wind was blowing, it wouldn't blow us across the front. You missed one there, so. But then I think I catch one right here somewhere, if I don't already have it right now. That's why I guess he's picking his pole up. Let's see. And the bird's flying. Beautiful, beautiful day. Clear skies, cold, it's still beautiful. So I got one. So I hooked one. Working those grass edges out there in those in the mud flat. I want to say this one's a 23. So he went around the boat. He's not real big, but he still went around the boat. This one was a fighter. It just, you know, it's another thing. When the water's colder, it seems like the fish fight harder. You know, so there he is. So as you can see, you catch redfish out here in this type of water too. Where there's a lot of mud, very little grass. They hang out there. And like I've said, there's redfish all over the Laguna Madre. I mean, anywhere you go, you catch redfish. I told him I didn't need the net. He's not that big. I want to film it a little bit before I bring it into the boat. Capture some footage. It's splashing around on the line. And see, Cassie on her game. Look at that. It's all over it. Alright, let's bring him in. Yeah, it looks like about a 23, 22, 23 right there somewhere. But on days like this, guys, this is one thing that you really have to work it. You got to work it hard because it's not gonna. The fishing's not gonna come easy on cold days. When the water's cold and it's cold outside, fishing the flats, it doesn't come easy. You have to really work it because the fish just aren't really looking to bite. So it really puts your skill set to the test. And I think that day there were only the big one that he caught, and then I caught two other ones. I want to say a 21 and a 23, and then the rest of them were all undersized. We're all little rat reds. You know, a lot of people don't like catching rat reds. It doesn't bother me because it just hones your skills at catching fish. You know, or even hardheads too when you're popping the cork. I mean, it just hones your skills. You know, at making sure your line's always tight. You know, and so what people call trash fish, it's to me, it's still worth catching it because it keeps you sharp and hones your skills as a fisherman. Ah, but beautiful little red. Beautiful redfish. Yeah, if I remember right, that one was 23. And then I think the next one I catch is 21. And then, of course, there's a few little rat reds in between there. That's red. Nice little red. All right, so we're going to pick up. So look at the water there. Look how shallow it is. We're talking 8 inches, maybe 10 max. So here's a perfect example of taking off in the shallow grass flats and a tunnel boat. The deal with the tunnel is this, is you need to get up on a wave that pushes water through the tunnel, that raises the motor up out of the mud, so it chops water instead of chopping air and you're cavitating. But see how we're right up against that mud bar right there? You see all that water's breaking there? It's a huge mud bar that we just floated right up against. So I got to make an adjustment here. So this is a perfect spot because the mud is soft. So this is a perfect spot. You see how there's hardly any grass? It's just all mud. This is a perfect spot for me to get up here. And I'm not going to tear up the grass in that area. So we're going to do a circle to the left. And that boat's going to get up. It struggles a little bit because it's right on the cutoff point to where it would just cavitate. But I need a wave. But you see, look how we're right up against that mud bar. Look at that big old mud bar. It's huge. And we floated right up against the edge of it. But this is putting my boat to the test. See all that mud I'm stirring up? And then right here, watch this. It's going to take off. Because I'm raising the water level, and then when I start moving forward, it's going to push water in the tunnel, and it's going to raise the boat up, and the boat's going to take off. There it goes. That's the way it's done. But you see how we're out there in the mud? There's hardly any grass. Redfish roam all over that place too, just like they do in the sand flats. This is the sand flats you'll find on the island side. On the continental side of the continent, of the bay, where it goes up against the Texas continent, you'll find mud flats. Just miles upon miles of mud flats like this. And the redfish are out there too. You see how there's hardly any grass at all? Just little splotch here, little splotch there. It's all mud out there. And there are good times that you go out there and there's redfish all over the place out there to be caught. And that wide open, clear water mud flat. And this is directly behind Rattlesnake Island and Cobnell Island. They're in Rattlesnake Bay. And it banks right up against the Laguna Atascosa Wildlife Refuge. But like I'm telling you is you need to have a really shallow running boat, because if you don't, you can find yourself in a pickle out there. Because there's a lot of mud bars that have to be navigated just to even get in there. And then there's a bunch of them while you're in there too, in that part of the bay. So now we're heading out, and we're going to go to the intercoastal waterway, and we're going to shoot down that, and we're going to head to Bird Island and try it, do one drift through there, and then we're going to come back in. So we spent, I don't know, 3 hours out there, 4 hours out there. So here we are going between the spoil drops. On the other side of the spoil drops is the intercoastal waterway. And then we're going to line up with it, and we're going to head right out into... but you see how we're at the south end now by 3 islands? So we've drifted through there, and we're at the south end by 3 islands of Rattlesnake Bay. And we're going to go into the intercoastal and head back north to Bird Island, which is at the mouth of the Arroyo. And we're going to go past it and come in from the north side, since the wind is blowing from the north, which you'll see. Let's just let the video unfold. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. And drift back behind it, and do one drift behind it. And I think I catch another 21-inch red, and then of course some small rat reds. But you have to remember, it's a cold day. Sun's out, clear, but it's cold. And on those kind of days, you really have to work it if you're going to get fish. Because it's a lot. Now we're in the intercoastal waterway, heading north towards Arroyo City and Bird Island. So you can see where the intercoastal waterway ends. You see that line off on the starboard side of the boat? That's where it gets shallow real fast. So when these big barges and stuff move through here, they got a very narrow lane that they got to stay in, you know, or they'll run aground. That they have to keep those big. I mean, that's just amazing to me how they navigate it all the time, like it's nothing on the size of those barges that those tugs push through there. It's amazing. So see, we're pretty far back. We're close to 3 islands. We came out at the south end of Rattlesnake Bay. And now we're heading back to the north, and then we're gonna pass up Bird Island and go onto the north side of it, and then cut across and drift right behind Bird Island. Is what we're gonna do here, and that's gonna finish it off. And it was another reds kind of day that day. I don't think any trout was caught because I didn't see any of that in any of the video anywhere. And when I checked my hard drives on the ones that I have on there, I didn't see anything that was left out that we caught speckled trout on. It was a reds day. But as it gets cold, you know, when it's cold, you probably want to be fishing along this edge here to the starboard and to the port side of the boat. You'll probably do really well because that's where the fish are going to be hanging in that deeper water to try to stay warm. Because the shallow water gets cold real fast because there's not a lot of layers there when the temperature drops. And then when it starts to warm up, they'll move back up into the flats again. But like I say, I'm a flats guy. I'm determined to fish the flats. So I go out and I work it hard and try to make it happen. You know, it's just a little bit more harder to do in the wintertime, but you can. As you can see, we had success. Not great success, but we had success. I mean, Robert won the day with that big red by far. That's a beautiful redfish that he caught out there in the mud flats in about, 14 inches of water. So see, we're heading north, and then we're going to come around the north side. That's what we're going to do of Bird Island. But you see, we're almost all the way down to 3 islands. Look how long it's taking us to travel up here, man. Rattlesnake Bay is a big bay. Goes for a good penny. A good mile, man. It's good and long and deep. I love it. It's one of my favorite places on the Lower Laguna Madre. There's all kinds of areas to fish in that bay. Mud flats, grass flats, guts, straits, spoil banks. I mean, it's just a very unique part too of the Lower Laguna Madre. So much potential in there, but you just got to work it. They may not be in one area, and you go to another area of the bay, and then that's where you find them. So you need to work you got to work that bay. All right, so coming up here, you can see off to the starboard side of the bow of the boat is going to be Bird Island, and off to the port side is the mouth of the Arroyo, the Southern Y. If I remember right, we go past the south side of Bird Island, and then we turn in on the north. Because, like I said, the wind's blowing out of the north, and we want the wind to our back as we're drift fishing. So we got to go north of the island and drift back into it. And that's what I'm telling them, that we're going to go north. And then we'll hang the right into the flats right behind Bird Island and drift back. There's the pole. That pole's not there anymore. It's been gone for a few years now. I think some barge ran it over trying to stab it in there, trying to get into the mouth of the arroyo, and they went too far to the left and they ran it over, and it's buried. There's like a little red buoy there, buoy marker now. There's a boat sitting right here, see? So this guy's got the right idea. He's fishing at in between where it Y's off, the Y on the north and the Y on the south. This is a northern Y right here. So you got some people fishing this, because since it's a cold day, this is where they're going to try their luck to see if they can catch any fish. Any cold day, it's tough to catch fish. You really got to work it. See that barge going in at the north right there? So Bird Island is to the starboard side right there. We're going to just pass it up, and then we're going to hang a right. And we're going to go right behind Bird Island and drift from the north to the south, instead of the south to the north like we normally do. That's what I'm telling them. We're going to cut across right here. And as you can see, it was a clear day. Beautiful clear day. There's another boat right there, it looks like. Somebody see? They're fishing off the channel. So now we're on the back side of Bird Island. You see it? It's right there on the starboard side of the boat. And we're fishing those grass flats right directly behind Bird Island. And here I got another one. So let's see if this is the 21, or maybe this is the 23, and the other one that I caught in the mud flat was 21. Let's see what this one is. Or is this the rat red that I caught? Because we did catch a few rat reds too. I don't know if they made it into the video or not. He looks pretty good size there. We'll see once we get him up here to the camera. See, Cassie was already asleep. Now look, she's on her game now. She's, oh man, he's got one. I gotta get on this. She was laid down, trying to stay warm. She's on it now. It's not that big of a red because I don't use the net to bring him in. I just pick him up by the leader. So that looks like the 21 inch. So the one earlier was 23 and this one's the 21. Which are good eating size, especially 21. That's the size you want if you're going to eat them. Best tasting, easy to fillet. They don't have those thick red veins in them that you got to cut out of them, out of the bigger ones. That's the perfect eating size right there. 20, 21, 22. 23 is still okay too. Let's get the hook out of him. See, Cassie licking him. Cassie can't wait. And as you can see, the wind is probably blowing about 8 miles an hour now, so the wind has died down. We're hardly even moving. Whenever you drift fish, you need wind. I like that between 10 and, I don't know, 12 miles an hour wind. That's what I prefer. You move along, but you don't move along that fast. Once it starts getting 15 to 20, then you're moving pretty quick. And then anything above that, you're moving fast. You know, like in that one video where I was out there in 40 plus mile, 40 mile-an-hour winds with up to 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Man, in 30 minutes we drifted to, 30 minutes an hour. We drifted all the way to Port Mansfield. So that's a little too fast if you're a drift fishing guy. Slower the better, so you can cover the area. There's always in the back of your mind missed opportunity that, man, I wish I had a little bit more time in that area before the boat moved on. You know, because you're trying all these potholes, grass lines that you're throwing to. Any movement that you see in the water, you're throwing at that to see what's out there. So we'll see if we get him up to the camera and see which one this one is.
21 inch.
Oh, I don't know. He looks pretty good size. Well, if I recall, I know I want to say it was 21, 23 that I caught that day. Or maybe it was a 22, I don't remember. But still, that's a good eating redfish right there. So see, there's a little rat red. We were catching those too. We caught a bunch of those. I didn't really put them in the film, but we caught a few of those. They were out. But the thing about rat reds is, like I say, it hones your skills. So don't get dismayed that you're catching undersized redfish. One, it's a good sign that you got a strong population there in the water because there's younger ones coming on. And then two, it hones your skills at catching reds because they're a lot faster than the bigger ones. Alright, so we're fixing to take off here. That was it. And now we're going to be heading back. Takeaways. What can I say? I've been fishing Rattlesnake Bay, Bird Island, Green Island, which there'll be some Green Island videos coming up here soon. I think I got another Rattlesnake Bay video that I'm going to comment on. And then I want to say we're probably going to move into Green Island. And so you can see the Green Island area. But I love these places. Another beautiful day. Look at that. Nothing but open water before you. Out there on the Lower Laguna Madre. So many possibilities that you can think, okay, I want to try this, I want to do this. And I mean, yeah, sometimes you have great success. And then other times, of course, yeah, it's a flop. You don't, But I mean, the only way that you're going to learn to be a better fisherman is just try it and work it. You got to work it. I mean, that's how you become a better fisherman. You stay at it. You don't give up. You try things that you normally don't do, Step out of your comfort zone. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then you move on. No big deal. But I'm telling you, the more you do it, the better you'll be. And the more fish you're going to start catching. Because that day there was a very challenging day. The temperature was 47 degrees when we put in. So the water was cold, the air was cold, and right then and there, the fish aren't going to be moving. Because they like to sit and stay lethargic until water warms up. They don't like move. Let's put it this way. They're only going to move if they're super, super hungry. They're really starving, and then they're gonna move and try to catch some bait. But other than that, they're not really gonna be moving. And so for a day like that, I think we came off pretty good. It's not the most reds that I've caught in a day, but it was a very challenging day, and it still paid off. We still caught fish, and at the end of the day, that's what it's all about: catching fish. And Robert won the day that day. Got the biggest red out of all the reds that we caught. And so from that time, those reds were already gone from back behind there. I think Robert got on the tail end of that and caught one of the last big ones that was still hanging out there in that area at that time of the year. And then they've moved on. So whatever they were doing back there for that whole basically month period, whether they were spawning, um, whatever they were doing, they were there. I don't have that answer why they were there, but they were there. Um, and they've moved on. And now the challenge is, what? What do you think the challenge is? Is to find where did they go and see where they moved to. And see, that's the beauty of it, of the Lower Laguna Madre. You go try another spot. See if they're over here or if they're over there. Endless possibilities. So here we are lining up in the Arroyo to head back in. But just think about it, guys. That's the way fishing is. Yeah, you can fish by GPS. You can fish by your favorite spots and this and that. I usually fish those areas. I do have those three, or you know, I'm like anybody else. I do have favorite spots, and I've talked about it plenty of times. Bird Island, Rattlesnake Bay, Green Island. Those three. But if you go to those areas, and you'll see they're a lot bigger than just around that island. So I do go out further. I mean, I've been out to Peyton's Bay. I've been out to the Saucer. I've been out to the Hole. I've been even north of the cut there. So, and then even further south down by Potter Island. You know, you saw some videos on Holly Beach. You know, so like I said, you just got to broaden your horizons, and you got to go and just fish them. That's the only way you're gonna know. You know, there's no secret spots. There's just places that you haven't tried to fish yet on the Lower Laguna Madre. Somebody else is fishing it, and they're like, "Oh, this is my spot. This is my secret." I'm not going to tell anybody. This. You know, whatever the story is. But what I'm just trying to say is this: is you just don't know, because we're creatures of habit, and we get into doing just certain things, and we don't usually venture outside of that. So you just need to broaden your horizon, try different areas of the Lower Laguna Madre, and it might surprise you. Because I'm telling you, I fished all over the Lower Laguna Madre, and I've caught redfish all over that bay. I may not have caught trout all over that bay. The trout are only in certain areas of the bay and in the Arroyo. But the redfish are everywhere. That's one thing we do have. We have a really strong population of redfish in the Lower Laguna Madre, because they're everywhere. Everywhere you go, you'll catch a redfish. It may not be a keeper redfish. You know, it may be a rat red, but it's a redfish that you're catching. They swim all over. Redfish are curious fish. They like to roam. They roam everywhere. And see, just look how high the water is there. Look off of the port side of the boat there. Look how it's all the way up, inundated up into the Laguna Coastal Wildlife Refuge there on the bank. Again, we went in the morning at the major bite. This was a major bite time that we went, and but it was a cold day, and we had success. Greatest success? No, but we still had success. But there was a lot of water at that time in the bay. A lot of water. Even if the tide was changing, there was still a lot of water left. I don't know what else I can add to this I think I'm going to do one more. There might be another one out there too before we start doing Green Island, but I know for sure I have a mud flats one where I caught some really nice redfish in the mud flats where we were just at right here. It was the next trip out from this. I went right back. So it was cold now, and then I think I waited probably, this was January. I'd have to look at the date. I don't want to misquote myself. But I do know the next video I'm going to cover is Rattlesnake Bay, and it was right after this fishing trip. And I went right back to the mud flats where Robert caught that big red, because I'm thinking, hey, if he caught that big red, there's got to be some more there somewhere. And sure enough, there was. But that's for another day. We will talk about it in that video. But just to kind of give you a little preview of what's to come. Yes, they were still over there. We just needed to make a little bit more different adjustment, and we would have been right in line with them because I found them when I went back. Me, I'm always being curious and I'm always thinking. I mean, after I fish that day and I go home and throughout the week before I'm going to go out again, I'm thinking, I'm already contemplating where, what I had done, what I had seen, and whether it's worth taking another run at it or to move on and try another spot. And as you can see, for this past month, I kept going back because I'm still locked in. I'm still saying, hey, they're there in Rattlesnake Bay. They're back there in the mud flats. They're there, and they were. They were still out there. Just need to make a few more adjustments. You know, I take people out every now and then. That's once in a blue moon. Somebody will go with me on the boat, but that's very rare in my videos. I mean, generally that water is my time. When I'm out there in the lower Laguna Madre, that's my time, my solace, where I get away from everything. And it's just me, Cassie, and in the future, Rusty will be joining us, and the fish, and enjoying the day. But every now and then, I'll take somebody with me. Robert had a good time, and it was my pleasure to help him get that experience of catching a big red like that. I'm sure he's caught a big redfish before, but I don't think he's caught one as big as that one. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Back in the day, he probably used to catch really big ones when he was young. It's probably been many years since he's caught big redfish like that. But I was glad that he got the opportunity to relive that again. And it made it even sweeter when he let it go instead of keeping it. That was beautiful too. You know. But what can I say? Another beautiful day out on the lower Laguna Madre. Just stick to your guns. When it's cold, you got to work it harder, and you just got to stay with it because they're going to be a lot harder to catch. And we didn't use no artificial that day. It was just popping the cork, live shrimp. Jerry's was open down there at the bait stand. Bought the bait and the shrimp, the live shrimp, and we just popped the cork using the back bay thunder. And it was a challenging day to have success. I always like the ride out and the ride back. Because the ride out, you're contemplating what will be. And on the ride back, you're contemplating what was and what had happened that day. And if you had any miscues, so you're on the ride back, I'm always thinking, what could I have done better? You know what I mean? And it gives me pause to think. So anyway, we're coming up to the pier here and the dock. Enjoy the rest of the video. One of these days, Cassie, me, and Rusty will see you guys out on the lower Laguna Madre.